Hey guys, welcome back to Sweet Red Poppy. I'm Kimberly, and on today's episode, we are going to be making the cutest clay earrings. Now, these are so on trend right now, and the best part is that you can make them from home on a budget. So I'm going to share all of my tips and tricks with you to help you make your very own clay earrings from home. I have a few different ways to make these, and I wanted to share some of the things that I've picked up along the way. So let's go ahead and jump right into this tutorial. For this tutorial, you will need a flat surface to work on, some needle nose pliers, cookie cutters, something to create a hole with, a strong adhesive, Sculpey clay, earring hooks, a Cricut tool, and a rolling pin. So to start off with, let's talk a little bit about the type of clay that we're going to be using today. I really like this Sculpey clay. I found it at Joann. It's easy to work with, it's beginner friendly, and it's pretty strong once it's been baked, which makes it ideal for working with earrings. You want a clay that can hold up to wear and tear and can hold itself together. So this one's great. I would recommend it. I would also recommend the Sculpey 3. That one works as well, really well. So that's a good one. You'll want to have a variety of different colors. So I have just a variety in front of me. You could choose a few different colors that are complementary. It's really up to you. Go ahead and preheat your oven while you're working with your clay. Make sure that you check your instructions on the specific type of clay you're using because the temperature and the time can vary. We're gonna start out by making my very favorite earring. So this is just a really pretty pressed flower, and I'm gonna show you exactly how to make it. It looks really neat, but it's actually pretty easy to make. So to start with, you'll want to break off a little piece of your clay, and then you just want to knead it in between your fingers. Now, a little tip, when you're working with clay, make sure that you've washed and dried your hands before you begin. You want to wash them really well, really thoroughly to remove any grease or dirt or lint, and then dry them with a paper towel. And the reason for that is if you dry them with a normal towel, you can transfer some of that, those fibers, and it can end up getting into your clay and it doesn't look very good. So make sure you have nice clean hands when you're working with this white clay. I'm just going to push and pull this, and I'm just kneading it until it is all soft, and the warmth of your hands kind of warms this up as you're going, which is nice. If it's really hard clay, sometimes if it's a little bit older, it will dry out. Then I will just put a little bit of this clay softener on it, which makes it soften up pretty quickly. Once your clay feels like it's been mixed up completely and it's a little bit more uniform, go ahead and roll it into a ball. Place it on the flat surface in front of you, and we're going to roll it out with a rolling pin. Now, you might be wondering what type of surface you should use with your clay. To roll out your clay, you want to use a flat, clean surface. There's a few different things that you can use. There are oven-safe rolling mats that you can use from Sculpey. You can also use a piece of white copy paper. You could even use parchment paper. You just need something that's flat, that won't stick to the clay, and that's clean. So I'm just using this little silicone mat that's right in front of me, and I'm gonna roll my clay out back and forth. This is a clay roller, but you could just use any type of one that you have in your kitchen. You don't need anything fancy, just need something to help roll this out. And when you're rolling it out, you want to get it to a thickness of about 1/4 of an inch. I find that that's the very best for these earrings. You don't have to roll it all the way out to 1/4 of an inch because we're going to be adding on our flowers, and then after that, we're going to roll it out a second time. So once I have this rolled out flat in front of me, I want to start creating my flowers. And the way that I do that is by breaking off some of these colors. And I'm going to just break off teeny tiny little pieces and roll it into a little ball. And I like to make little groupings of different colors that I can pull from as I'm creating. I like to make each different color a slightly different size. So if I have my red is a little bit bigger, then my orange is going to be a little bit smaller. Just want to play around with size to give you some variety. Once you've rolled out all of your little balls, it's time to start making your pattern. I like to start in the very center with a few of my larger balls. And I usually start out with 5 of them. I'm gonna make a few different types of flowers throughout this. This first one is just gonna be a pretty standard flower. So I press it down a little bit, mostly just to attach it to the clay, not to smush it completely, because we're gonna go back over it in a little bit and flatten it out completely. And then I always put a different color in the center. Now I'm gonna keep building around this. I want to leave a little bit of blank space in between each design, but not a ton. So I'm going to build this yellow flower next. And again, I'm just going to press it down a little bit to make sure that it's sticking. And I'll give it a little center. A lot of it is just playing around with the shapes and sizes just to create interesting patterns. I'm going to go ahead and add in some little leaves. Just slide them right in between my petals. Sometimes I'll make a little rose. I like to roll this out in between my fingers into a little snake. And then I'll take another color and do the same thing as well. And just gently squeeze them together and then start rolling. And then I like to go back through some of my white space and just fill it in with little small balls. I'm going to put a pink one in here, a red here. This just breaks up some of that negative space. So once you've covered most of your white space, then it's time to roll your design out. And what that's going to do is adhere your top layer to the base layer. So I'm just going to smush everything down a little bit, make sure that it's somewhat attached before I roll it out, because I don't want it to get caught on my rolling pin and pull away from the clay. So we're just going to smush everything down. This part's pretty fun. And this is what gives you that neat pattern that looks like it's part of the clay. I like to just make sure that the thickness is pretty uniform throughout the whole piece. You can just look around at the edges to check that. So now I have my little cookie cutters and I'm ready to start cutting my clay out. So I like to look over the top of my cookie cutter and really kind of eyeball the placement. So you can move your cutter around and figure out which spot you really want it. I like to do it right in the middle of a few different designs instead of spot on. So I'll probably off center it so I get a little bit of all of the colors. You push down firmly, and then before you remove it, you want to go ahead and make the hole for your earring jump ring. So I just poke this in, turn it a little bit, and then gently pull it out. And then I can remove my cookie cutter. The reason why I make the hole for the earring while the cookie cutter is still in place is it keeps your clay from getting pushed out of the circle, and it keeps your circle nice and uniform. And then this middle one actually needs 2 holes. So make sure that you do that. If it gets stuck to your cookie cutter, just gently push it out. If you don't have cookie cutters, you can really use anything around the house. You can look for a top to a bottle, you can use a chapstick cap. You probably have some normal cookie cutters somewhere in your house, so you can get creative with how you make your shapes. And then on the top one, how many holes you have really depends on how you want your earring to hang. If you want to have it on one of these and it kind of moves back and forth, then you'll want to make sure you have 2 holes. If you're putting it on like a flat backed earring post, then you just need 1 hole. I always like to cut out an extra of each shape just in case something happens to my clay earring in the process of baking or putting it together. Then I don't have to go back and do this whole process again. So I'm just going to cut a few extras. I have this little Sculpey baking mat and I'm just going to transfer all of my shapes over to this. But you can just bake it on a cookie sheet if you don't have this. When you're moving these over, just really carefully lift them up. You don't want to stretch them out or bend them too much. So once they're on the mat, I like to make sure that they're just flat completely. Now we can move on to our next earring. For this next tutorial, you will need 2 different sized cookie cutters. So I have a square and I have this cute little circle, and it's going to make an earring that looks somewhat like this. And I'm going to show you how to achieve that really pretty lace finish. So go ahead and knead your dough. I'm using this pink. I'm just going to knead it until it's nice and soft. Roll it up into a ball and then use your rolling pin to roll it flat. Remember, we're trying to roll it out to about 1/4 inch in thickness. Now sometimes you might get little micro bubbles in your clay, and that's okay. If you have a little sewing pin, you can just pop those bubbles and roll right over it again. Now that this is looking pretty good, I'm going to take this little imprint template that I got from Sculpey, lay it on top, and then gently roll it into my clay. And this is going to leave that really pretty lace print on top of my clay. Before I completely rip it off, I like to just double check slowly that it made a good print. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it away. And now I'm going to press my cookie cutters. And don't forget to make the little holes for your earring. And gently pull those away. The clay might get stuck. If it does, just really gently pull it out, push it out. The nice thing about this clay is that even if you have leftovers, you can just roll it back up into a ball, store it in a Ziploc, and you can use it later on. So you're not wasting, even if you have a bunch that's left over. I'm going to go ahead and transfer these over to my baking mat. Now it's time for our final earring, which is our really cute little rainbow. This one is so trendy right now, and you're going to love making this one. To begin, you need 3 different colors for this. So I like to choose colors that are pretty close together. So I'm going to go with this kind of coral that I have, an orange, and a pink. So I'm just kneading this until it's nice and soft, and then I'm going to roll it into a snake. It's like we're back in art class. So you want to get this nice and thin. This is even a little more clay than what I really need. You can use your fingers to roll. You can use the palm of your hand. It's really up to you. You just want to make sure that it's nice and uniform. So I will usually take a look at my rope and just make sure that everything is about equal thickness. I want to roll this out until it's about 1/4 inch thick, just like my other pieces. And I'm going to move on to my next color. So I like to lay these next to each other and get an idea of size, and that one's looking pretty good. So I'm going to move on to my pink. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half. I just gently push them together, and now I'm going to really gently bend them in. So you just kind of want to shape these into a rainbow. Then I like to place them side by side to get an idea of size. And I just use my little Cricut tool to chop the little ends off. I like to make it a quick movement. And then I take my tool just to pull the edges in a little bit, because when you do that, it kind of flares out. I want to pull them back in. If you have any bumps, you can just gently brush over them to smooth them out. I'm going to use my little tool to push a hole. I do it right in between these two layers. And I'm going to transfer it over to my baking mat. And kind of make sure that they're shaped exactly how you want them to harden when they're on the mat. And then I'm going to bake these for half an hour at 275. Make sure that you're checking the clay's instructions that you're using to get the best results. So I went ahead and I baked some of these beforehand just so that we could skip right to the process of putting our earrings together. So I have one of my flower ones out in front of me, and we're going to be adding some jump rings to it. So I have my pliers. I like to use 2 pairs. I'm going to grab a jump ring, and I like to just turn it open because this keeps the integrity of that circle without stretching it out. And it just goes right in that hole. And then I'm going to grab this one, goes face down. And if you have any clay breakage while you're doing this, it probably means that your clay is underbaked. That's one of the biggest problems that people face, is that their clay breaks after they've baked it, and it's usually just a matter of underbaking their clay. Maybe their oven isn't as hot as they think it is, or they just didn't keep it in there long enough. You might have made your clay a little bit thicker than 1/4 of an inch, which means it would need an additional half an hour. So that one's looking good. I'm gonna move on to the next one. Again, I just turn that jump ring open, slide it in. Now I'm gonna close it. Go ahead and flip this over, and now we're going to be gluing this earring to the back of it. I'm going to use this beacon adhesive. It's called 527. It's a really strong glue, and it's great for this project. So I just put a little dab on the back and press this earring into place. And I typically just let this dry overnight. But here's what it will look like once it's all dry. So super fun earring. And it wasn't that hard to make. Now I'm going to put together my little lace earrings, and it's pretty much the same exact process. Just going to open up our jump rings and connect our 2 pieces of clay. Okay, I'm going to turn these over to the back side and attach my posts with some glue. Just press that firmly, and then I'm gonna let that dry overnight. But here's what it looks like. They are just so cute and so fun. Okay, it is time for our last earring to put it together. This is the rainbow one. I already put this one together, but I'm gonna show you how to do this one, and it's pretty simple. Again, we're working with a jump ring. So I'm going to open this up. Slide it through that hole that we made. And also going to hook my little earring hook on. And just close that right up. Now I have my cute little rainbow earrings. So I loved sharing these fun little earrings with you. I can't wait to see what you guys make. It's such a fun tutorial because you can really put your own spin on it, make whatever you want to make with it, and it's inexpensive. So great little craft to do from home right now during quarantine. Don't forget to subscribe to Sweet Red Poppy. I share a crafty video every single week, so hit the notifications bell. That way you get notified the next time one of my videos goes live. I'll see you next week.